Hello and welcome to another look at the Foundry VTT. Now, a while ago, several months ago, I did a video on the simple world building system for Foundry. So if you didn't have a system already built, then you could build a very basic system using the simple world building system. And they also did one a little bit later where you could use the simple world building system with the PDF character sheets so that you can basically play anything, and both of those videos have been well received, but I thought I would take another look at it now because there has been a new release of a simple world building system. This is dated on the 4th of November 2020, and this is release 040. So there have been some changes. So I thought today that I would take a look at these changes, and then we'll see what the changes are and what has been good for us. So as you can see, I have got the basic simple world building. That's the main thing I've got up and running. And so we're going to have a look at what has changed. So the first thing, let's go into our configure settings. If we go into the system settings now, we've got two new settings. We can use shortened macro syntax. So instead of each time putting the @attributes.strength.value, we can just reduce that to @attributes.strength. So if you don't want that and you want to write the full one out, by all means do that. And the second one is initiative formula. So we can set our own initiative formula. So if you want 1d20, you can do plus an attribute, or you can, if you want to, and we'll do this, we'll set it to 1d6, do it the old school way. And we'll have a look at now at creating characters. So if we have a look at our actors, we can create an actor. And if we go to the attributes tab, this is where it's all changed. We can now have different attribute groups with the attributes below them. So let's have a look at how we can create an attribute. So first of all, let's start off. We'll have an attribute of stat. We'll add that as an attribute group. If we can get it in there, stat and add. And we'll have another one called attack. For some reason it's not taking it the first time, but when you add it the second time, it's taking it. Who knows what that is. Okay, so under each one of these groups that we've now got, we can have different stats, different abilities, different, and the choice we've got is a string, a number, a boolean, and formula and resistance are also new. So let's pick a number first, and we're going to have our first attribute. We give it a name, and it must be all one word. We can't have spaces in it, so we're going to call this one might instead of strength, just for a change. We'll give it a value of 1. It's a number, and we'll call that might. And then we'll create another one. We'll call this intellect. Why not? We'll give that a strength of 2. So that gives us a first couple of attributes. As we got before, you've also got your two resource bars at the top, which you can use for your health or whatever you want to use it for. So let's do an attack. So let's do an attack of, we'll say, we'll have a formula, because it's going to be a formula, which allows us to roll. So we'll click on that and you'll see that there's a die symbol. We're going to call it brawl, and that is going to be 1d20 plus, and now we can refer to any of the items above. So we have to use the @ symbol. The group name, and the group name is stat for this one, so we have stat, and then whatever the attribute is below, and that is going to be might, so might, and that's going to be whatever the label goes in here, that will appear in our chat. So let's switch over to the chat bar now, and if we roll this, it should roll on d20, pick up the +1 for might. And there we go. If we change this to a 4, we can see now, and roll it again, we should add +4 to the roll. Great. So that's the first thing. We've got our nice simple references there. So we can design these groups as and when we want. Now, can we roll macros for this? Well, first of all, let's create a scene, a blank screen, and I'll close that off. So we've got a scene open in the background, and let's drag our actor onto the scene. I'm going to have to set the grid, aren't I? Probably am going to, yes. Okay. So there's our scene. We're going to activate it. There we go. And now let's drag our actor onto the screen. So now our actor's on the screen. So if we click on our actor, we can open up our character sheet. Okay, so let's create a new macro. And we're going to call this, intellect. So if we type -R for roll, 1d20, and we're going to add a stat dot intellect, and it's going to be word for word, and we'll save that macro. So now we've got it in here. So if we've got our figure, our token highlighted, we should roll 1d20 and add 2. And there we go. So we can actually have our macros in the bar below. Now, what you can also do with your actors is once you've created them the way you want, you can then define it as a template. So we're going to recall this name actor, we'll call it PC, lowercase. And then if we, let's try again, PC. There we go. There we go. Now, if you right click it, you'll notice at the bottom we can define this as a template. So we'll do that, define it as a template. Now, next time we create an actor, we get the choice of which template type we have. So this one, we can use a drop down, PC, and we'll call this Jane. Click yes, and now you'll see everything for that template is brought across. And obviously it's brought the values across because I set those values in the template. But if we delete that and go back to our template and we blank those out and just have those as 0, and then what we could do is let's duplicate this. We'll call this one NPC, and in our attributes let's say that for some reason that the NPCs use intellect for brawling. Let's just say that. Okay, so now we've got a PC, that's the template. Let's unset that template and then reset that as a template now. So now we've got a PC template and an NPC template. So next time we go to create actor, we've got a choice then of NPC or PCs. So once you've got the base character set up, it's all hip and dandy. So we're going to set a new PC and we'll call this, let's call it Bill. Click yes, and now Bill is our new character. Any changes we make to this now, so if I set his intellect to 3 and his might to 5 and close that down, next time we open it, that will remain the same, but with our template, the template remains at 0 and is not harmed. So that's great. Let's have a look at items then. So if we go to the items tab and create an item, let's call this one, let's call it a club. We can put a description in the left hand side, and they can also have attributes as well. So let's have an attribute for this as damage. So we will have a group called damage. And this is going to be a number, and let's say it's, in fact, no, let's make it a dice roll. So we'll have a formula, we'll add that, and we'll call it club damage. And because I'm using two words, I'm using the underscore, so it reads as one word, and we'll have that as 1d6, and we'll label that as club damage, and we can have spaces in this one. So now with this one, we've got a club damage. We should be able to roll this and roll a 1d6, and it does. So let's get our character, Bill, go to his items, and let's drag the club into it. And the club appears, and there's also a little button appears here, and if we click that button, it rolls our damage. So now we can create our characters and our items to drag in. What we can't do at the moment is we cannot reference character attributes in items. I have put something in the GitHub for this to say that they got reference, but we should be able to reference the other way around. So let's create a new item, and we'll call this one, let's create an item, we'll call it magic. Let's call it, keep it simple, call it sword. And sword is going to have an attributes, and it's going to have an attribute group of call it damage again to keep it simple, add the attribute group, and then we'll call it sword underscore strength. Nope, we want an item underneath it, let's get it right. So under number we'll have a SWORD underscore strength, and we'll set that at a value of 1. Sword strength. Okay. I hope if I spell. So that is our sword, and this time we're going to drop the sword in, and if we open it, you can see it's got the sword strength of 1. So let's put that to one side so we can reference it. Go into our attributes, and let's add a sword attack. So we want another formula. We're going to have sword, and let's say this is going to be, and if you notice, it orders them in alphabetical order. So we're going to have 1d20 plus the attribute of stat dot might plus, now we're going to try and add the items that are on this side here, and I believe that the items are, let's get it in the right, plus at, and it's items dot, and then it's the item name, so that's sword, one word, then a dot, then the attribute group, which is damage, so that's damage, and another dot, and finally the attribute, so that is the sword underscore strength. So looking back at that, we're going to be rolling a 1d20. From the character, we're going to add the stat might, which is 5, and to that we're going to add an item he's equipped with, which is an items dot, name of the item is sword, the attribute group is damage, and followed by the attribute. So there, now we should click, cross fingers when we roll this, and there it is, 1d20 plus the 5 from the might plus 1 from the sword. And if we go to the sword and alter that to a 2, now when we roll it, it should add 2 to it, and so it does. So now we've got attributes onto our items which we can add to our roles. But as I said before, this doesn't work the other way around. If I've got a sword, I cannot pull the attribute and from strength, and we'll have a look at that just to see that. So let's get our sword. So you would think that if I was going to do a roll from here, and let's pick a formula, and we'll call it a double T underscore SWD, just to make it easier. And this is going to be 1d20, click on it, 1d20 plus at, so this is a character, so it should be character dot stat dot might. That's what it should be if it worked, and we'll roll that. So if that worked, that would roll 1d20 and add d5 because it's attacked to that. But when you roll it, it's just adding 0. It's not picking that up. So that is an issue I brought up on GitHub. Hopefully that will be brought up on the next update with a bit of luck. Let's just have a look at the other items you can add. You can add a string, which is obviously a piece of text. A boolean is a tick box, usually yes or no. So you could have something like, let's just pick a boolean one, and we'll call it injured. So you could have a boolean with injured, and then whenever it's injured, you tick the box. So that's what boolean's for. The other ones you've got is a resource. So yeah, this is a good one. So let's have, let's say that we're going to have under our stats here something called sanity. So we're going to pick resource, and we get a new one. So we call this sanity, and we get 3 boxes. We have a minimum value, the current value, and the maximum value. So we'll say the current, the minimum value you can have on sanity is 0. The maximum you can have is 10, and our current value is 5. So if we add to it, it can never go above 10, and it can never go below 0. We're going to call this sanity. So what can we do with this resource? Well, let's go back to our token, and if we go to the settings on the token and our resources, we can set the item, and we can set what the bar is. And as you notice, we've got health and power, and let's open up the character sheet so we can see. So if we set health and the bottom one for power and update those, now you should see that we've got 2 bars there. If I alter the power bar, you'll see that the bar changes, and that is the power bar, and the other one is the health bar. So now we should be able to use our resources and our resources for this PC. Helped if I set it up on the right PC. I set that. Let's drag Bill in. So Bill has got the attributes of sanity. So on Bill's, let's go to the token, resources. So there is our health, there is our power, but now because we set this as a resource, we can have a look at this one and put this one. So let's say we set the top bar to attributes stat sanity, update the token, and there you see the sanity. So on our main sheet, if this drops to 2, you'll see that the bar drops. It also means that we can alter the bar by right clicking. So let's put this up to 11. But when we right click again, it won't. Oh, it's set to 11. Hey, there we go. So let's have a look at the token. Is that a bug? If its maximum value is 10, why is it set till 11? This might be another bug. So anyway, that is what it's supposed to do, is have the value there and set the resources. So there we go. That's the main changes to the simple world building, and we'll have a look to see if there are any more changes to it for future. It's certainly coming along, and it now is a bit more usable than it was in my last video when it was a bit of a mess. At least now this makes a little bit more sense, and it's great that we can have our items in it as well. So that's a big boon. So that's it for this episode. I hope you find that was useful, and I'll see you all on the flip side.